What's up, Quakes fans? Welcome to another episode of Tectonic Takes. I'm here, as always, with my co-host Devon. Devon, how you doing today?
It's great. It's a great day. It's a great week. I know for Quakes fans, it's not a great week. Losing it overtime or extra time, like the way we did, kind of sucks. But um, you know, for me, I just got a new job, and not even like a week in, they asked me to be they asked to promote me to supervisor. So I'm really happy. So
Heck
how
yeah.
about you, Abram? How's your week going?
It's pretty good. It's been a blur. It's been a little bit hot. The weather's getting nicer, but with all this hair, I don't really do well in the heat, as you can imagine. But yeah, I'm still kind of the loss is kind of lingering because I didn't get to watch the game, but I was at the Oakland Roots game against Monterey Bay FC, and I was looking at the updates, and I was like, "Yeah, we're 2-0 up. Heck yeah!" 6 minutes later, I look 3-2 down. What the
Dude,
heck is happening?
it's
It
crazy.
was
It's funny because, well, not funny. It was kind of sad, but also funny for me because I was talking to um, someone on the phone for 6 minutes, and the moment I got on the phone was the moment the penalty was called. The moment I got off the phone was the moment they scored the third goal. So I started a phone call 2-0 up, and I ended the phone call 3-2 down. I'm like, what the heck happened? Because I left
so
the
you're
room
saying
and I
it's
didn't
your fault.
realize it. Yeah, I guess you could say that. I guess you could use me as a scapegoat, but ah, man, those 5 minutes are gonna linger for a while.
Yeah, and that wasn't even the worst of it, right? That volley at the end. It. So I was gonna ask you, what do you think is the main contributing factor to losing like we are so often, like in the extra time or whatever.
I think it's inconsistencies in small moments where we don't find our feet underneath us, if that makes sense. We just can't seem to find a certain momentum at a certain time of a game, and it could be within like minute 20 to minute 27, which we've seen so often. We kind of collapse after the 20th minute. In this distance, it's the 62nd to 67th minute. It's within a 5 minute span where we just seem to lose control entirely of our team. And I don't really know exactly where the faults are. I haven't looked at any statistics or anything behind that. It's just something that seems to be patternized within the team. Um, so if you can eliminate those 5 bad minutes of the game, I think we could definitely take a draw or a win away or in any game for that matter. Although I would like to say one thing before I forget this because I have a really bad memory. If that red card or if that play on Skayan with the goalkeeper was actually called the way I think it should have been, I think it was a red card to the goalkeeper, and the entire game would have been played out completely differently than the way it was in the last 20 or so minutes. I don't think we would have conceded at all at the end of the game if that was a red card because the keeper made obviously no attempt on the ball, completely played Skayan as the last man. I don't know what the refs were thinking, and I like, and I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit. I like what Lucci said in the midweek press conference um, in regards to the refereeing, and that we're just constantly getting battered by the refs week in week out, and it's not fair.
Yeah, so I did want to touch on that. Lucci today, as of recording, had a midweek press conference, and he had a lot of things to say. And I don't think he was wrong in anything. Um, but I think this might be the theme of the episode. Why us? Uh, why does this happen to the earthquake so often? That the referees just, you know, kind of throw us to the side, and we always end up getting the short end of the stick. Because I didn't see that play in the highlights. I heard of it through Lucci being upset about it, and rightfully so. And I know you're a Quakes fan, and I have to see it by like myself to be able to truly judge. But I trust your judgment, and I mean, I don't know, like that. Also, the fact that it wasn't shown in the replays, that's
Mhm.
ridiculous, right? That's a dog so penalty, red card. Like, that's a crazy moment of the game to not show. And it is kind of indicative of the treatment that we're receiving from not just the MLS, but the refs as well.
And it's their first week back for pro. Pros trying to
Yeah.
get back on their feet. That's not a way you want to start a new a new era of pro, especially once you've completed renegotiations. It's not a good look, like you said.
No, I mean, and it's been going on for a while. We've had Almeida comment on this when he was in charge, constantly talking about how maybe the refs don't respect the Earthquakes because we don't have stars on our team. And in the press conference today, Lucci kind of said the same thing. We don't have Luis Suarez or Lionel Messi, but you have to respect the San Jose Earthquakes. What do you think about that?
I like his call out. I know there's some fans that will disagree out there listening to this podcast right now, and that's okay. We respect your disagreement, but I really like what Lucci has done, and I think you're right. It's been said by multiple managers of the San Jose Earthquakes in years past, and it just seems to be a consistent theme for us. We keep getting messed up by referee decisions, and Lucci's just making yet another note of it in our history books. We don't get favorable calls, whether it be because of what Lucci said, we don't have stars or whatever. We technically do have stars. We have Christian Espinosa, we have Daniel, we have really good players. Rodriguez was one of the best center backs in the league last year, if I remember correctly. We have guys that definitely deserve the recognition as stars have, but the league themselves doesn't. They don't really consider those guys as stars like Lionel Messi or Luis Suarez or big name European players that come in because they've had all these accolades from from big name teams across the world. We don't have that. I think that is definitely a contribution as a factor for us getting blown calls.
Yeah, and I mean, I was thinking about this earlier. And I didn't want to put it in the Discord because I was scared I might get roasted for it. But I think that you put Espinosa into a team like LAFC, they could compete in the Premier League, not for the title, obviously, but they could be a mid-table team. I believe that. I think that he's such a good player, and is that caliber. And I think with the rest of the team, if you have a roster that is just as good as him, then you can really not just in MLS but in world soccer. I think uh, we have a very strong player in Christian Espinosa. Um, you mentioned Rodriguez. He didn't paint himself in the best of light because one of those goals, I hate to say it, but that's 100% his fault.
Yep.
You know what the goal I'm talking about?
Not exactly, but I missed all three of those goals from
Mm.
the phone call. So
This is
I
gonna be a
only got
great
to see the
podcast.
earthquakes.
Neither of us saw anything. We weren't there.
That might be for the best, Abram. That might be for the best.
So I'll describe it to you in case you didn't see it. But so it was a ball into the box. Rodriguez heads it pretty much straight up. No one around him. Obrian is standing by himself, not even expecting the ball to come to him. He's like literally just walking in the box, strolling, having a nice time. And Rodriguez heads it straight up, and it falls straight to Obrian. And of course, a player that quality is going to finish that. Um, You don't do that. I've played, soccer at a decent level, never anything pro or anything like that, but I know not to just head the ball straight up and hope for the best. You head it with intent and direction to get it out. As a professional defender, that's kind of unacceptable.
I agree, and I sense a pattern in a lot of Brazilians that come to MLS. Obviously, not all Brazilians, but at least the ones that I see coming to San Jose, their very first year seems to be like a superstar year. They shine, they're amazing, and then their second year, it's almost like they fall back underneath the fundamental level, where all of a sudden they start getting a ton of things wrong. And I'm trying to study that and understand why internationals adapt the way they do to MLS like that, where you know they skip out on some things that seem to have been like their strong point in the season prior. You know, I think I
Yeah, I
see that
think
in Tanner Beeson as well.
Tanner Beason, the
And he's
Brazilians plus Tanner Beason,
plus Tanner Beeson.
just that group. um, No, yeah, I think a very prominent example of that is Judson, who does have very capable attributes in other places. I think that he was an absolute bulldog in midfield for most of the time he was here, his knees did start to go and he lost some speed. But defensively, he was very uh, uh, I wanted to say virile, but that's kind of has other implications. But he was after the ball all the time. But the first year was by far his best year, and then he just went down over time, to where I didn't trust him receiving the ball. When you're watching a game and there's players who I want to receive it. And whenever Junton would get it, I would have a little bit of panic, like, okay, don't do anything stupid. I
Hmm.
want the ball to go to Espinosa. I want it to go to Chikaris or Abobasi. I didn't want it to go to Cade a lot of the time, unless he's like running off of it. I'll be like, come on, just be safe with it. And Judson was one of those players. Remedy was one of those players. Jackson Ewell is not one of those players. I felt like he was safe with it. Beeson is one of those players where I'm like, oh my god, it's just so stressful to see them receive the ball because I'm like, what's gonna happen? It's gonna be
Right.
it either goes like normal, it's just a normal sideways pass, or it's just terrible.
Well,
But
there's one triggering moment in the preseason where Danielle had a first touch as a goalkeeper, played it back to him, and all of a sudden, like, he completely lost direction of where the ball went, and then I started panicking, even though it was a preseason game. I think it was versus either Portland or Charlotte, one of the two. But yeah, I was like panicking, like, no, don't do this, please, please, not now. I hope it's not during, consistent for the rest of the season. And now, unfortunately, Daniel underwent surgery, and we're gonna miss him for several months. So we won't be seeing him in net. Um, but on this topic, I'd like to give praise to William Yarbrough, who we would have never thought would be a Quake starter. We thought Daniel would be the top guy, and he's come in and he's shined. He's absolutely shined.
I want to say that obviously, all things being normal, no injuries, Daniel's a starter. Like, I agree on that. I knew Daniel had a dodgy knee, and I knew that William Yarbrough was gonna have to play because JT absolutely nuked his knee. It was a horrific injury. I knew he wasn't gonna come back this season, so I knew that William Yarbrough. So when you said who would have thought, Abram would have thought. Um, but obviously, I knew that it would be in negative circumstances where we'd be missing out on Daniel. I did want to say though, we here at the Ton of Takes are big fans of Daniel. But I was listening to Extra Time podcast with Daniel Wiebe, Matt Doyle, and all them, and they hardly do analysis on the Quakes because let's face it, there's not a lot to say. We don't surprise many people. We lose. Life goes on. Um, but they provided some analysis after this game against Austin, which probably because it was such a thrilling game. But they were saying that Daniel, had a great year his first year, and we'd all agree. But they're saying that he's regressed to be a terrible goalkeeper this year. And although I do think that he let in a goal or two that should have been kept out, I wouldn't call him a terrible goalkeeper. What do you think?
Who, Daniel?
Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, he's not terrible at all. He was the best goalkeeper of the season last year. There's
Right,
anything but terrible. Yeah.
but they're saying that he had that high level and then he's regressed this year. And I do think that there are signs of regression, but there's nothing extreme, right?
I wouldn't say extreme. I mean, he's made a ton of crucial saves for us. I think most of the assumption of a regression, I think, comes from the ability from the opposition to find the right space to beat Daniel and make him look poor. But I don't think that has much to do with Daniel. I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we've changed tactics, and Lucci is trying to incorporate more offense into the team as much as the defense last year. Considering we lacked offense, I think that has a lot of aspect for why Daniel looks bad, but I don't think that's the case. I think Daniel was the same Daniel, barring a possible carrying injury that we may or may not know of throughout the early part of the season. But yeah, no, I didn't see any negative side to Daniel, except for small hints that he he might still be injured, which kind of goes back to my international point. There's just it's a minuscule regression in most of
Those
the
dang
internationals.
Brazilians and Tanner Beeson.
And Tanner Beeson, it's always that minuscule amount of regression. And kind of like you mentioned, like Rodriguez being at fault for one of the goals, having an awkward header. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. And that's the thing that they gave us this job, huh? Ivan and Fabi, they're like, "Hey, you guys take care of the podcast," but there's not much to say. I don't know what it is. I don't know why we're so bad.
I think you said it
Uh,
midweek. It's just like talking the same points over and over. It's
yeah,
Quakes loss after Quakes loss after Quakes loss.
yeah, and it's. I think that we honestly have a very tough job. Sorry, I need this light on. It looks cool.
It does.
We have a very tough job as Quakes content creators because it's the same thing, and we feel the pain of watching our team losing, and but we also see the positives because we're watching them so hard. I think that we were kind of the better team, in my opinion. Another thing that the Extra Time podcast said is that on their numbers, I didn't really understand. They're like XG, not penalty. I don't quite understand all that. I'm not Jamin Moore, but they were saying that we are by far the unluckiest team in the league when it comes to XG and our chances and losing in extra time. And it feels that way for sure.
Definitely. And, I think we can point out again the darn pro referees or any referee that refs as, for the San Jose Earthquakes keep giving us the bad luck, man. It's just not a fun time to be a San Jose Earthquake right now.
Devin has gripes with pro referees, Brazilians, and Tanner Beeson at this point.
The list is growing. The list is growing.
Yeah, this is growing. But yeah, I heard on the another podcast to check out. We always mention them. Are what is it called? Quakes Epicenter. Them. They mentioned that we had a whole XG over, like a whole goal XG above Austin in that game. Meaning, I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about XG, but what it means essentially in the base form is that we have way better chances, but we didn't score them, and they had stupider chances. I put it that way,
Yeah.
and they scored them. Um, and so it's when you're scoring the stupid chances, you're gonna beat the team who is not scoring their really good chances. That's just soccer, you know. And
Yep.
it sucks to always be on this end of this happening, on top of the referees, on top of everything.
Well, one thing I'd like to commend is Amal Pellegrino and Benji Kikanovic on the left side. I think we've seen more danger on the left hand side for the San Jose Earthquakes than we have in years past. The last time we saw as much danger, and I've noted this in the Discord server in Tectonic Takes, which you can find below in the description, the link to the Discord server. They're making dangerous chances, and as I've called it, Amal Pellegrino is great coming off the bench, considering he's just coming back from injury, giving Benji Kikanovic a chance to prove himself, which he hasn't been able to get himself on the score sheet much, as much as I'd hoped in recent time. But I think that's okay. And now Amal Pellegrino coming off the bench, he seems like he's fitting himself into that left wing position really well, finding more opportunities, generating more opportunities. The team seems more comfortable with him. He even got a goal versus Austin to equalize 3-3. So I like what we're doing right now. Given we didn't come away with any points at all, I think that fares more to luck than it does skill. I think Lucci's tactics were decent, and if that wants to spark a debate anywhere, they can find me on socials. Go ahead, let me know. But I think his tactics were decent. There were stints where we weren't attacking as well as we could have. We weren't defending as well as we could have, sure. But I think that's more of a point on individual performance. Um, and we were attacking for most of the 90 minutes, I would say, I'd argue. And it seemed like we were a pretty healthy team as well. Dangerous with Amal Pellegrino coming off as subs. Great substitutions. Jack Skane should have given the goalkeeper a red card, but that didn't happen. Like what we're doing right now is, I would argue, successful. It's just the points. The points is what we need, and we're not getting
Yeah,
those.
yeah, I agree. I think I think that this has been the case for a long time with San Jose Earthquake. We might play well, but it doesn't matter if we don't finish the job at the end of the day. I did want to expand on what you said about Juan Pellegrino and Benji. I think that is a very strong depth chart to have on the left side. Um, Benji has had a up and down career with the San Jose Earthquakes. I think that his first few seasons were very good, and then he had a poor season in between. Now I think that he's kind of come back to the Benji that we all know and love. You have to remember this guy was, I don't want to say nobody, but like he was coming from Reno, not like we gave Reno him to develop. He came on at Reno from the combines, and then we liked what we saw from him. And you wouldn't think that he was a USL extra guy. He's an MLS quality winger or a striker, whatever you want to call it. Um, I think that he has more than enough quality to make a name for himself in this league. I think definitely. Sorry, this is playing. I think that he honestly has more quality than someone like Max Arfson, who was very good for us when he was playing here at Quakes too. But he's kind of made a name for himself in a different system in a team that needs him more. I would say. I think Benji in a different team probably gets a lot more recognition. But it's a great tandem to have either him or Pellegrino to switch off because Pellegrino, I would think that all things being as they should be, he would be the starter, and I think that that finish he had is super hard to do. It's a really tight space between the defender that's coming on and the goalkeeper, who is not a slouch. Badstuf is a pretty good keeper in this league, but Pellegrino, he's an incredible finisher, and he showed it today finally. But Benji coming off the bench with speed, if the roles were flipped, that's a great option to have. But also Pellegrino with the expertise and the technique off the bench, that's also a good option. So I'm kind of like whichever way we want to go with it, I'm cool with that, as long as we have Nico Shakaris on the field. That guy is special.
I'm glad we're in both agreement there, Abram. We all think Nico Sakaris deserves his pay, deserves a pay raise, deserves the time on the field. We also had a conversation in the Discord server about, if anyone deserves a U22 spot, I think it's Nico Sakaris because that also provides a raise for Nico, who deserves it, and that adds up another. I want to say not roster spot because that's taking up a roster spot, but you know what I mean, like extra wage that we can use on someone else.
I mean, so technically Nico is a homegrown, so he doesn't take any wage. But I 100% agree that he should be a U22 because it gives him a pay raise, like you said. And then with the way that MLS works, is we have then the option to sign two more U22 players, which is awesome, and also have a DP or three more U22s and no other DP. I personally would choose the former. Um, and just have really strong DP and two more U22s. I don't think we're gonna get any of those. I think that we're just gonna stick it out with what we got. But honestly, I think that like I said with Benji, I think any team would be happy to have Nico on their squad, and he kind of to me it doesn't play like a youngster. He plays like an established MLS center attacking mid. I know that he says he's an 8 or a 10. I like him a lot as a 10, and it's not easy to be a 10. That you have to have special attributes to you, and he does it flawlessly.
Yeah, there's no question that when Nico first appeared onto the field for the San Jose Earthquakes during regular season play, like all of a sudden we've risen from this bar to now this bar, and we're generating so many chances offensively. And there's one key player to thank for that, and that's obviously Nico Tsoukaris. Although there is one point that I would like to hand off to you, Abram, and it involves a former Quakes 2 player who has contributed to his team significantly over in Columbus. If you'd like to kind of open everyone's eyes to this certain player.
Yeah, I touched on Max Arfton briefly, just before we got into the rant about Benji and Pellegrino. But no, that guy is a very strong player. He plays with a lot of tenacity. He's kind of a two-way player. He's not a defender, but he does press very hard, which is probably why they like him so much over in Columbus. He obviously has a lot of technique and skill, and he's not like super crazy fast, but he can run, and he's a strong runner as well. Um, and in the first MLS Next Pro season, he had something like 9 goals, 8 assists, which is the most goal contributions that season. He played the most minutes for us that season. I mean, it's no wonder why he ended up getting a contract with Columbus Crew, and that's kind of like something that I what's the opposite of commend? Reprimand, I guess. Um, uh,
Condemn? I don't know.
yeah, condemn. So the San Jose Earthquakes don't sign Quakes 2 players. And for those who don't know, there's Quakes 2 players and then there's Quakes players. And then there's homegrowns who will play on Quakes 2. We could send anyone down to Quakes 2 that we feel like, but Quakes 2 has their players that belong to them and stay with Quakes 2. So we saw Rodolfo Castro. He left. We saw Max Darfton. He left because there wasn't a clear enough pathway from Quakes 2, having a contract as a pro in Quakes 2, to moving up to the MLS. Rudy Castro said multiple times that was his goal. He was the captain. He was scoring, uh, you know, double digit goals, beautiful goals. When we needed a set piece taker, we could have had him, off the bench just to whip it in. That would have been awesome. Um, Lalo Blancas, same thing. We needed a cam, center attacking mid, and we just threw Skahan out there to see what he does. And when he's tired, 4-4-2, no more cam. And that's ridiculous when we have a talent who's getting the third most key passes in the league, who's the youngest of the top three, and played the least minutes of the top three, scored the most goals of the top three key passes, was number 3 in goal scoring of the league as a center attacking mid with 12 goals and something like 8 assists, something like that. Incredible player, Lalo Blancas, and we don't think about him. He's like,
Yep.
you. We haven't heard about Lalo Blancas nearly enough, and maybe that's my fault for not talking about Quakes 2 enough or the Town FC, but there has to be a better pathway for these young guys if we want to be a club that is focusing on the youth and wants to like develop young players, maybe sell them off. Because Lalo Blancas honestly probably should have followed Arfston and elected for the draft. Arfston, that was his choice. He said, I don't see a path. I'm going to volunteer for the super draft, and that's why it was such a weird thing because he was a professional player going into the MLS Super Draft, which is usually for college players. We hadn't seen that before, and it was such a hubbub when it happened. But credit to Columbus, who saw that opportunity and took it, and now look where he is. And I fully believe that we've had players in Quakes 2 history that have had that kind of quality, but we just don't look at them. We've called up Bo LaRue 2 times. He is a Quakes 2 player. We didn't actually end up drafting him, but he got signed to Quakes 2 along with Riley Lynch, and we called him up 2 times to be on the bench. But that shows me that we've had that opportunity to do that, and we haven't for these younger players that have been there. And we kind of needed. Lalo Blancas was a player that we really could have used when we didn't have Nico Shakaris. And he's young enough, and he's also been part of the Quakes Academy for long enough to where we could have signed him on a homegrown deal. But he's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
sitting with the Town FC. Nobody hears about him. What's
Yep.
he doing? You know?
Yep.
And I'm just,
Well, we
yeah.
could kind of say that similar about Oscar Verhoeven, and I know you can build some points off to this after I finish. But Oscar Verhoeven, kind of like you said, hasn't been called up at all. Um, Unlike Bo LaRue, who's already been called up twice, and if I remember correctly, you can only be called up 4 times. if you're not officially signed to the first team or something like that. You can only be called up 4 times from the second team, and it's one of those things where Verhoeven hasn't even been called up at all. And out of all the Quakes 2 players, you would think Verhoeven absolutely deserves it. And there were games and moments where we needed extra fullback depth, like when Akapa was injured and someone else may have been injured, and we never brought Verhoeven. We took Muni, which I'm not upset about, but we think if anyone deserves it, it's the youth that's coming directly from our program. You know,
Yeah. No, I agree on different points than what you're saying. I agree that Verhoeven should be in contention for the left back spot or right back spot, either one. I heavily, prefer to have him on the right side, but that's a topic for another day. Verhoeven is a guy with a first team contract. I don't know if he's signed onto the what's it called, registered. I don't know if he's registered to the first team. Kind of like the Polish keeper. He's not registered to the first team. Um, but he belongs to the San Jose Earthquakes and not Quakes 2. So there's that distinction and the difference between him and Verhoeven. But I totally agree that we want to develop Verhoeven, use him, let him play, and stop playing Tommy at right back. That
it,
feels obvious to me. Even if Verhoeven is going to make the same mistake, that's development. That's what that's called.
right?
Um,
Mistakes
yeah,
make, like, pressure makes diamonds, and
exactly.
you can't make a diamond if there's no pressure.
Yeah,
You got to put the players in the right scenario, or not the right scenario. You got to put the players in the games so they can develop and understand and progress the way they need to, the way they need to progress. And doing so would provide Verhoeven minutes and give him time to think about how he can improve as a player. Because training isn't as San Jose Earthquakes fans know, training doesn't always mean everything.
yep,
Whatever happens in training may not always happen in their game.
yeah. No, and so we brought on Ricketts. I don't remember against who it was, but it was his MLS debut, um, and he came on at left back, I believe. Um, and I think that's great. I love Ricketts. I think Ricketts has incredible ability. Um, he's still working on his familiarity with the left back position, but Verhoeven been there, done that for Quakes too. I think that physically he is pretty much. I would say he's 80% there, like in terms of his development physically, and then he'll be able to go to the gym and get stronger and all that. But I think that he's fast enough to play in MLS. I think that he's good enough on both feet to pass okay, not lose the ball too many times. I think that he's a little bit skinny, but it doesn't matter when he goes face first into every tackle. This guy is crazy. Like, you guys don't understand. Um, the attitude on this kid. Um, he gets yellow cards and stuff like that constantly for his attitude against the referees. Even if he's in the wrong, he will always be in the ref's face, which I love. Um, and I think that we could use more of that in the first team. But I don't know. I think that Lucci might be scared, and I, so Lucci is kind of on the verge of losing his job, to be honest. So I kind of understand from that perspective. I don't personally know if I want Lucci to go yet. I think that, um, like I've said before, I've seen things from him that I would like him to continue, and I think would make this team better, this organization better, but we haven't seen that in a while. We've seen small improvements, but we still have lost 6 out of 7 games, and that's not good enough.
Right. And plus it's our 50th anniversary. We certainly don't want to be bottom of the table in the 50th anniversary collecting a wooden spoon out of all trophies to put in our cabinet. So yes, things do need to improve. Absolutely. We're all in agreement. We hate seeing the team lose constantly, and having the San Jose Earthquakes being one of the few teams in the Bay Area to constantly be on the bottom of the table. You know, they have Golden State Warriors who have been winning championships, considered a dynasty team as of recent. San Francisco Giants in 2012, 2010, collecting World Series trophies, championships. Um, you know, a bunch of really good teams. San Francisco 49ers constantly being in the Super Bowl, you know, almost year after year, basically, and contending for championships. We have great teams in the Bay Area, and then we have San Jose Earthquakes. Hence why we get no media attention at all, because we just can't seem to back up, you know, um, we can't back up anything with stats. We can't prove that we're a good team. Hence why we can't sell out games.
And on top of being a soccer team, which is just not a popular sport here.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, well, and then we have ownership problems with us and the Oakland A's. Um, but which we've already gone into that in past podcasts. And I don't think spreading that message again is really worth our time. But
Speaking of
yeah, go on.
speaking of spreading messages, um, so the town FC is ran uh, their operations outside of soccer is ran by the town FC, who is owned by Benno Nagel or Nagel. I don't know how to pronounce it, to be honest. But
Benno.
I thought that was ridiculous. His tweet, kind of calling out the Oakland Roots for losing in their game against Monterey after they lost. So the Town FC drew 1-1. A great goal by AJ Edwards came from a cross from Richmond, who is a great player. Not really in contention for the first team right now, but you have to give him props because he tries very hard and produces results regularly. Anyways, um, we tie that game 1-1. North Texas scores in the 97th minute of extra time. Uh, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, as it seems, but they go to penalties and they lose in penalties. And in MLS Next Pro, you get a point for losing in penalties after you draw the first 90 minutes. So it's technically a loss, but they do get a point. But Benno was on Twitter flexing that 1 point over Oakland Roots fans, like it's something to be proud of. And
It's only a
also,
1 point difference. It's awkward. It's weird.
it's so weird. It's also not in the USL, and it's not your team. It's the Quakes team that you're borrowing for now. You put a new shirt on them and act like you own them. It's
Hmm.
ridiculous to me. And what pisses me off, because I'm not technically a Roots fan. I was at the game when that happened. But what pisses me off is that this is Quakes 2, right? We can agree on that. This is Quakes 2 that you've wiped the name off of, put a different name on there, different colors, and then you can't take credit for them. This is the Quakes team. This is
Yep.
our players. You didn't sign any of them. You don't even control the coach. The coach is owned by the Earthquakes. It's ridiculous.
Also, something that you can probably spread more of a message on. But if Quakes 2 or the Town FC were to play against Oakland Roots, we're all in agreement. Oakland's kicking our butt.
Yeah, and it's just, just because they're grown men and we have 17-year-olds from the academy playing, and it's just not fair, to compare the two. And like it just pisses me off because all they do is sell hot dogs at the Quakes 2 games. And then you, you get to like, oh, that's our team. We got a point on penalties after we lost. Like it's really
It's a weird flex.
it's a
We
weird
can
flex.
finish that. It's a weird flex. Like there's no need to keep burning bridges after they're already burned. You know.
Yeah, and he claims Benno Nago. I don't know any of the specifics of him leaving the Oakland Roots. For context, he used to own the Roots. Now he owns the town. Um, uh, what was I gonna say? Hold on, wait, I edit this.
Well, while you're thinking, I'd like to make note and kind of praise Oakland Roots. for doing something that the Oakland A's can't do, and they, in future context, have signed an agreement with their stadium, or what is it, the Oakland A's stadium right now, the Coliseum. They're going to be playing games in the Coliseum, I think, starting in 2025. Correct me if I'm wrong. So shout out to the Roots. They're moving up. They're moving up.
Which is the Coliseum. I hadn't heard that. I guess the A's are moving to Sacramento,
Sacramento for
which
3 years so far, which I think it's going to be longer, but we'll see.
I think that the problem is just with all of the owners. All owners are bad. John Fisher, John Fisher again, Caval, and Benno. We're just everyone should have stopped owning soccer teams. I guess I don't know. We'll do it how they do in Germany. The fans own 51%.
Right? That's what we need. We need fan ownership. At least a heavy minor stake in fan ownership. That's what we
I
need.
don't
We
want
need
to
a
be.
voice.
I don't want to be at the head of this movement. I don't think I can. I can handle that.
With my comments, don't put me on the board.
Oh my God, we're going on ESPN. And with all that being said, I know that this might be a weird note to end on, but I think we covered everything in this shorter episode of Tectonic Takes. Devin, anything else you want to say?
Nope. I think most of the stuff that we really want to say is down in the description below. You can find all of our socials down there. Find a link to our Discord server. And I would suggest, if you're not already in our Discord, definitely join. There's a lot of really cool information out there. Um, yeah, really, we have really exciting conversations. And you definitely do not want to miss out in Tectonic Takes for sure.
Yeah, I would. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Tectonic Takes Discord is the most active community uh, for Quakes fans anywhere on the internet. Outside of PayPal Park, you go there. That's the only place that's going to be more active. I feel like.
As a
Uh,
realist, I don't want to gloat, but it's absolutely true. We have constant daily conversations, whether it be San Jose Earthquakes or any other sport like WWE. We have some crazy WWE fans in the servers. So if you like WWE and the San Jose Earthquakes, you will make some good friends.
and Minecraft and Lethal Company, like all the things.
All
We
sorts of
encompass
gaming.
everything. They're the reason why we're so active because we talk about everything there.
And the
Um,
forest. We're getting into the forest. I'm trying to get Abram to stream with me on the forest, but we'll
so
see how that goes.
somebody today made a poll like you like cats or dogs more. So that's the kind of thing you can expect to find out to kind of take Discord.
Literally everything.
I do want to shout out the Oakland Roots. I had an incredible time at the game, even though they did lose. BFC were probably the better team. Frankie Yallop has, probably takes the credit there, and also Rafa Baca was on the field, so that was nice to
You
see
said
him still playing
BFC?
for not BFC, Monterey BFC.
Okay.
This kind of BFC.
I just wanted to
Um,
make sure the information I heard was correct.
but yeah, the fans were very nice to me and Ivan there. It was a really cool atmosphere with a lot of culture, just dripping with culture. So definitely props to them. Also, shout out BFC, the real BFC. Um, uh, Check out their next home game. I'm gonna try to go to that. I didn't make it to the first home game, which I'm very disappointed about. That was sold out. There was no getting in there.
It's a great
Um,
atmosphere on TV anyway.
yeah, unfortunate that we lost that game too. It's just nothing going right for us.
Dude, another late goal, another late winner.
Yeah.
Like what any Bay Area soccer team just can't help it.
You know. Well, yeah, that's gonna do it for today's episode. Thank you guys for watching, and go Quakes.
Go Quakes.